Recording.
Welcome to For Such a Time as This. Reverend Deborah Johnson at the Inner Light Center, and today is Wednesday, October 4th, 2017. So let's take a breath. We always like to start with some centering. Just take a deep breath. With every breath, we allow ourselves to simply become more present. We remind ourselves of our deepest intent for being here. We come here to open up wide, to open our arms and our hearts, our minds, our eyes. We come here to see clearly. Truly, we are here for such a time as this. The Great Awakening, which is now. So whatever it is that needs to be said, let it be said. Whatever needs to be understood, let it be understood. Let the intention of this time together go far beyond whatever it is that we actually create, so that there's a rippling effect of consciousness that brings more upliftment, empowerment, love, compassion, and possibilities. Yes. We declare everything about our time together to be good and very, very good. We get out of the way, we allow it to be. And
so it is.
Amen.
Amen.
So welcome. Do we have any people yet online or who are
No,
in? Okay.
not yet.
So we always start with some kind of expression of gratitude or reminders of our deep intent for being here. Does anybody have a gratitude that they want to share, or a sense of their purpose and possibility that brings them to doing this extraordinary work?
I would like to just say that my eyes have been open. I see more than I ever used to see before. I read the newspaper with knowing how important certain things are that I would have let go. And now I read every word of it, like about the bail for people that can't afford it. I read every word of that article. The DACA information. I am more aware than I have ever been before of what's going around me. And I feel good about that.
Good. Very, very good. Yay.
Yay, yay.
You know, a lot of times we feel afraid to know, get stuck in our comfort zone. But I actually think it brings a greater sense of oneness, the more aware that we are of what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody else want to share a insight or gratitude?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I'm so grateful for this class and in developing my compassion for everyone, including people who that I do not see eye to eye with, including, Trump supporters and that, because I recently had a gift in that I found out I have a family member I didn't know I had. I have an aunt. She was adopted out. She's 73. And it's very, very exciting. It's so exciting. And she's a lovely woman. And she's a Trump supporter. So I found that out on her Facebook page. So it's stretching me to keep in that love, keep in that compassion, keep in that, you know, and not go in judgment. You know. But it's but I'm using the tools that I learned here. Thank you.
Amen. Anybody else want to share anything? Get started? Yeah.
My awakening hasn't been that, it's been full of conflicts. It's been awakening to not only holding my vision, but then having it collide with my intolerance and my judgment of people, and then coming back to my vision, and literally at war with myself, myself, because I had a lot of work to do. I think you were right. I got a lot of work to do, and I'm doing it.
Good.
Every day. I'm doing it. And I listened to your interview, and that was sweet. It was what I would call an ego-free interview.
Which interview?
On KCUP, on the radio.
Oh, okay, the one on Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
About the oneness,
Yeah.
the science
I
and
heard the
non-duality conference. I participated in.
Yeah, I heard the whole thing. And mostly I appreciated the interviewer and how gentle she was and how she didn't try to outshine you, but asked interesting questions, and she really seemed interested, and your answers were clear and concise, and I felt uplifted. I felt hopeful. And then I heard the news about Las Vegas. And it all came crashing down on my ears, the whole thing. And so I'm still holding my vision, calling on practitioners to pray with me for the world. And they're doing it. They're calling me back and they're praying with me for the world. I need to hold that vision. It's really, 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 really important. Thank you.
Yep. Very good. Very good. I love the growth that all of us are happening, that the growth that's happening within all of us. And, you know, that's what awakening means. If you are awakening, it's because you were in one state and you're moving to another state. So what is it that we are awakening from? And it's a constant process of awakening. So it's important for us to not judge where we are, because it's an apples to oranges comparison. When we're judging, I'm looking at what I see now versus what I knew before. And I'm looking at what I knew before through the eyes of what I know now. And through those eyes, it's always going to look short. It's always going to look like somehow or another I didn't have it together, or that I lost it or something like that. And instead of having that kind of judgment, what we need to do now is to commit to the process of daily awakening, so that becomes our expectation. Then my expectation is that every day I'm going to become more aware of some place that didn't have enough light, some judgment, something within me that was a restriction, constriction, holding me back. And what a wonderful opportunity the universe is going to give me this day to break through that and come out on the other side. So that it is a daily process, one that we actually look forward to. Every day, awakening. Not just I awakened, but every day I am in the process of awakening. I like the way that Lao Tzu puts it in the Tao Te Ching. That in the practice of knowledge, every day something is added. In the practice of the Tao, every day something's dropped. Every day something's dropped. The Tao Te Ching, which is basically the Bible of Taoism by Lao Tzu. And to me, it's a very helpful model of a way to look at our lives. That every day we're dropping something. Like peeling away at an artichoke or an onion that has rings and round, rings of it, and we're constantly moving closer and closer into the heart. All that other stuff is identities, it's egos, it's materialisms, it's paradigms and premises and all these things that are masking and literally encasing who it is that we are. So instead of looking at ourselves as a blank slate that we have to create, or something flawed that we have to fix, I like that model that Michelangelo used of that it's already in there. People ask him, well, how could you carve the David? He says, I see this statue in the stone and remove what doesn't belong. That's very different than how do I make this statue? The statue's already in there. I'm just removing the stuff that doesn't belong. And so it is with us. That when we come here to do this work, we have to be so incredibly convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the peace that we seek, the justice that we seek, the equality, the harmony, that these already exist, that they're already there. And we need to get rid of the impediments that are blocking them. We need to get rid of the biases, the constructs, the institutional restrictions, the attitudes, like whatever that is that's getting in the way. We need to release it. We need to let it go. It's very different than feeling like it's absent, and how do we find it? It's absent, how do we create it? It's not there, how do we make it happen? How do we make peace? How do we make prosperity? How do we make these things? No, we don't have to make it. We just got to get out of the way and stop doing the stuff that's impeding it. But it's very different than feeling that it's not there.
Yeah.
Yes.
My question is, it sounds almost as if we do exist on a higher plane or in a more refined dimension. We already pre-exist there. And so we can easily go there, except that we're magnetically locked in here by our memories and our involvement with this world.
Yes and no. It's that word magnetically.
Yeah.
I want you to lose that one. Okay? Because it implies that there's some kind of pre-existing form that continues to exist. But that's not the case. Every single day, we are creating anew. Listen to that. The body you have today is not the body you had last week or 2 months ago. So if you have the same condition today that you had 2 months ago, it's not the same. You get what I'm saying? It's not the same tumor. It's not the same cancer. It's one that looks like and mimics the other one because it has recreated itself. Extremely important. The racism that we have today, it's not the racism of 100 years ago. It looks like it, smells like it, acts like it, but it isn't a leftover of the racism 100 years ago. It's the racism we've recreated today. It's important that we realize that, because every single day has an opportunity to begin anew. Every single day. Because the cells are going to regenerate, why can't they regenerate back to the more original normal pattern? Like, where is that help? Where is that pattern? That pattern always exists. We're just having to tap back into it, to have a remembrance of it. It's like our minds go into a forgetfulness, and we get attached to what we see as though what we see is real, as though what we see is the only thing that exists. And it's not true. It's not true. We are looking at appearances. And most of the time, we don't even know what we're looking at. We're busy naming it and giving it some kind of whatever. We're giving it some kind of suggestion. I mean, it can even be the simplest thing. This morning, for example, in my closet, on the floor, there is something that's black. It looks like it is plastic. It was probably some kind of a clip to a hanger or something like that, like to hold up pants or something like that. And it's fallen and it's bent in a certain spot, right? I know what it is. I have yet to have picked it up. Every time I go towards the closet and I see this particular thing, I get up. Because my mind immediately registers like it's a spider or something. You know, the carpet's like a toad. So the black really shows up. And then I go, okay, it's just that clip. But are you with me? But for that moment, my mind, that's what I see. Okay? And if I didn't know it was a clip, I would still be going through all the anxieties and whatever I would be going through, thinking there was this big spider there. That's how we do with our lives. We're looking at clips and naming them spiders. You know, we're looking at all these different things and we're naming it to be something that maybe it's not. And it's only what we name it to be. And I'm not trying to be hard on you, Nicholas, when I'm saying, like, rename that, but your presence in the room is so symbolic of the possibilities of what I'm talking about. You grew up in apartheid South Africa. A white man in apartheid South Africa. You watched apartheid, I'm sure you participated in apartheid coming down. If we thought of it as a magnet, thought of it as something that we were just immutably drawn to or that pre-existed, it would have never come down. But it came down. Because people, black and white, tapped into some more original vibration and said this apartheid is an overlay. This apartheid is like a casing. It's like an armor, you know, or something that's locking us in that doesn't have to be. We keep recreating it, but we don't have to. We don't have to. And it isn't even so much we've got to create something new as it is allow what would be if we didn't put that armor on. You know, what is the world if we didn't have that armor?
Yeah, that's what I found in South Africa. That the white people in the main had a structured intellect And that governed their attitude towards life. And very often they artificially put on this armor. They didn't really want to put on that armor, but they felt they had to because everybody else around them was putting on the armor. Then that becomes the norm.
Yes.
That's a horrible condition. And the way the Africans, I saw this daily, the way the Africans undermined this was by spontaneity, natural spontaneity, and incredible humor. They would laugh when they saw one of their number being chased by the police because they saw it as like a comedy routine almost. And so the sheer, that's what appealed to me about the African people. The simpleness and directness and an incredible folk knowledge. They often spoke about animals as if they were really intelligent beings. One African once showed me a donkey and told me about the conversations he had with the donkey. And he used the donkey as a parable for a slave mentality. He said the donkey doesn't know anything except the work he does every day. This is an African telling you. And the donkey hasn't woken up. He doesn't know what is outside this place where he works. And I realized, wow, he's talking about his brother Africans who he doesn't see as smart as he is. But it was so enriching. I mean, that's what everybody needs. What the most beautiful African people that I saw have, that we all need everywhere in the world is that natural humor. And I believe there's a philosophy of nature. There's a philosophy inherent in all natural beings. And we live in a highly complex world where we have to think and analyze, and none of that is natural. And I think that's part of the cruelty of the black race, having to live in this world of skyscrapers and traffic, and that's not inherent to their original natural foundation. And it's a much bigger struggle for them to adapt to than anybody else. That's what I believe.
Well, yeah, I would agree with you. The thing is that it's not natural to any of us. It's just that some cultures moved away from it a long time ago, and they have created a new norm. So for cultures that have still remained a little bit more indigenous and closer to the earth, it's foreign. But the point is that it's actually foreign to everybody, and we all have an indigenous soul. If you go back far enough, there have just been some cultures, Western cultures that have adapted, a different kind of a mentality. And when you get away from nature, when you get away from your understanding as one with the spiritual beings, when you get away with the understanding that the plants are wise, that the animals are wise, that we're just one of them, and what can we learn from them? When we get too puffed up with ourselves, thinking that we're at the top of the food chain and don't have anything to learn from anybody, or anything, that's when we get off, and there's a deprivation of the soul. That happens.
Every living thing has a consciousness.
Yeah.
Every living thing has an intelligence. Who are we to claim that we got the most and the best and we got it going on?
Well, and even things that we don't consider living have consciousness, like rocks, like mountains, like dirt, We're here to reawaken. We're here to get some humility. To remember, human beings were the last on the evolutionary chain. Everything else is already here. We're even the Genesis story parallels evolution. of what came into being on what day. The earth, the ethereal, and then, you know, the earth plane, and the water was first, and it has it all. You know, the sea monsters, the sea creatures, the land coming, the winged, and then the creepy crawly things, and like humanity is at the end of that whole trail of, you know, what was created in terms of succession. You know, but be that as it may, we're here. We're here, and we're here for such a time as this. Yes.
No, I had a 2 macular bone repairs a few years ago, and that process involves going in and pulling the retina, not the retina, but the macula together, and then putting a gas bundle in, like a Band-Aid. Gradually, the gas bundle disappears. And it was amazing to me how my brain would figure out some way to explain what I was seeing. And it would be different at different times depending on what my eye was projecting out into the world. One time it was like the top of the gas bundle, looking over the top of the gas bundle. And my brain said, oh, I know what that is. That's that pond we saw up in Yosemite in 1954. And it put the trees in and everything. I actually had to get up and pull the curtain back in the den I was in to make sure it wasn't there, because my brain was so convinced that I was actually seeing it. And I think we do that a lot. It's one reason why witnesses oftentimes disagree about what they saw. Their perception changed.
Definitely, no question about it. And that's all sight really is. You know, it's your brain's perception. These are new glasses with the same frame, but they're new glasses. To the extent there actually is a frame, there's only like a couple little pieces that are considered the frame. And I wear progressives, so that it's different prescriptions in different places. But I've had that prescription for 7 years, which is a lot longer than you should ever have in your glasses. So needless to say, when I got a new prescription, it's like my eyes are adjusting. It turns out it's actually not the right prescription, and they're replacing this. But the point is that your glasses don't do anything to your eyes. Your glasses do nothing to your eyes. Your eyes are still the same. But it's how your brain is registering it. It's your brain. When you take a pain pill, that pain pill is, let's say your arm is cut, it's doing nothing for your arm. The pain pill does nothing for your arm. The pain pill shifts the centers in your brain that are registering pain. If you didn't have the nerve endings that were going up and registering that, somebody could be stabbing you in your arm repeatedly and you wouldn't feel a thing, because it's not your arm. It's your brain that's registering the pain, which is why this work is so important, which is why meditation is so important, which is why our capacity to control our perceptions, to choose to name what we see and not just be on automatic pilot, naming it what everybody else is naming it, is where liberation comes from. Our creativity comes from seeing the unseen first. Check that out. Creativity comes from seeing the unseen first. So in your mind, it already exists. And because it exists in your mind, then you can bring it into form. Whether it's creating a new government or baking a cake. That there's a perception and a reality in your mind. I can take this egg, I can take this flour, I can do this oven and whatnot, and there's going to be a cake at the other end of it. And it's that ability to perceive something that doesn't already exist in the material world, but yet exists in the ethereal world. Plato and Socrates used to refer to it like a prototype, like an idea. Like, for example, there could be an idea of a chair that transcends any one particular chair. And though you can get rid of physical chairs, that's not going to get rid of the idea of a chair. And as long as there's an idea of a chair, there's always a possibility for there to be another one. One might have 4 legs, one might have a stool, just a pole, one might have this or that, but we have a kind of certain sense of how we think that works. And so it is with our lives, that we have to go to the essence, not get stuck on particular chairs that we see, which may or may not be adequate for the task at hand, but to know that there's a concept of it. So we're here for a concept about harmony. We're here for a concept about peace. We're here for a concept about oneness, and to believe in that so much that we're constantly moving in the direction of that coming into manifestation. It cannot come into manifestation without our energetic attention. Everything that we see is here because it has been the focus of attention. We cannot manifest stuff that does not have our attention. And conversely, whatever we keep giving our attention to is going to keep manifesting at deeper and deeper levels. So we have to take charge of what this is that we're doing. We've got to take charge of what this is that we're doing and where it is that our mind is going, such that we can harness that energy and move it in the direction that we really want it to go in. I've been doing a lot of interviews lately, and an interview that I did yesterday is it's a topic that keeps coming up, and it got to be so intense with the chat room and all of that. I'm coming back next week to do another round with it. But it's all about this notion of the protests that are going on now, particularly at athletic events in regards to the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem. I'm sure all of you are aware that this stuff has been going on and creating a lot of controversy and, upheaval in terms of the discussions of it. And people have been asking me, well, what do I think about all of this? Some of it's just passing conversation. Some of it has to do with, parents of young athletes, in high school or college, and the parents aren't quite sure what to say, to their, athletes. Do they support them? Do they counsel them away? Like, what exactly is this that, they should be doing? And I'm just going to use this as training about how do we move forward, period. We've been spending a lot of time on like the consciousness and how do we change our own selves. And I want to start moving into the activist realm of what activities do we do? How do we do it? What is the consciousness that we need to bring when we're doing them? So sometimes this is referred to as taking a knee. That's the phrase that's being used now. And taking a knee is in reference to, instead of standing for the national anthem, is kneeling down, not standing, but kneeling down as a sign of protest to communicate, a particular message. This last go round, and I want to refer to it as the last go round, because using sporting events, you know, particularly using events, particularly sporting events, as an opportunity for a public arena and forum to register either a complaint or something that you want to direct attention to. I'm getting images in my head now. I think it was the '66 Olympics of the Black Power. Yeah, the Panthers putting on their berets and, you know, doing their Black Fist, Black Power, which is an image that has kind of stayed within the American photographic, you know, archives. But it's not that uncommon. There's a player in the National Football League, the NFL, Kaepernick, who was probably one of the forerunners of this new wave of protesting that's coming along. And I want to speak to that in particular, and what does it mean to do the protest, and how do you protest? So when Kaepernick first started taking the knee, it was in response to the Black Lives Matters, which covers a lot of social justice ground, but was particularly fueled by just the enormous number of African Americans, particularly males, who are killed at the hands of the police. Whatever, unarmed, beaten clearly, and it's nothing new. However, the preponderance of cell phones and the fact that cell phones have cameras and that more and more of these are being captured, and through the advent of social media, which didn't exist before, the frequency at which these things occur are being captured more on film and distributed to social media in such a way that it's had a shocking effect, particularly for white America, that this is going on. And typically what has happened with these cases time and time again, if we can go back 20 years and there's never a conviction, ever. There's never a conviction on the part of the police of any kind of wrongdoing, regardless of indictments or any of this stuff. What winds up happening is that the families bring, once the criminal cases lose, they bring a civil case that the person's civil rights were somehow violated. And that's where they usually wind up getting some kind of justice or some kind of remedy. But the court systems have provided nothing. With a number of these more highly publicized police beatings, shootings, riots have broken out. And once again, this isn't anything new. I remember very distinctly the Rodney King, the riots that happened in protest to the Los Angeles Police Department from the beatings of Rodney King back in 1992. You know, this is 2017. I remember it so distinctly because I was going to my 20-year class reunion. And we were like, what the heck? You know, we're burning, you know, our neighborhood's burning up again. It burned up when we were in elementary school in the 60s with the Watts riots, and it's like burning up again. It burned up after King, you know, he was assassinated. Like, what? You know, it's still, the riots in LA are still the biggest public protest. It was 900 square miles. It was 30 by 30. And this went on for days. So there's the idea in these protests, and particularly around taking the knee and not standing for the national anthem, is bringing some conscious awareness to the fact that this is going on and calling for a change. We have so lost the point. You don't even hear the media talking anymore about what was the end game. Like, what was the goal of the protest? It's being morphed now as though the not standing for the national anthem, what was just a means to an end was the goal itself. Like, somehow or another, this is a protest against the United States government, or this is a protest, it's a sign of lack of loyalty. This is a sign of wanting to be divisive and not associate with your American citizenship and causing some kind of dispersion, or like this is proof of how much you dislike or hate America. When in fact it was the opposite. It's love America so much. We can do better. We love America so much. This really isn't us. Come on, people. Wake up. Don't just keep standing up, singing about the land of the free when we're violating that so often. It was a plea, it was a cry, not because we hate America, but because we love America. Because we love America, and calling us up as citizens to really live out our creed, to let's do this thing, and to bring attention to the fact that we're falling short, that there are huge segments of for our population, and I'm telling you, as an African American, every time I hear the national anthem, every time, and they hit that high note, the land of the free. And there's this thing that happens. It's so paradoxical, is what I would say. There's something that's kind of hypnotically suggestive about that national anthem. It hasn't, like, this energy field that really pulls you into it. And I'm proud to be an American. I don't like everything America does, but I'm very proud to be an American. I wouldn't want to be, a citizen of any other country at this particular point in my life. So there's this part of me, and I well up, and particularly when I see a Black person singing the national anthem, it really just goes through there. And there's this cognitive dissonance that happens in my brain. It's like, what the hell are we saying about? Like drinking the Kool-Aid. Like every time we sing this, we are going into a deeper denial and deeper trance about who we are, what we are, and this has never been the land of the free. Not for maybe some people, but within the Constitution itself, within the very first article of the Constitution itself, we write in slave states and free states. We've never been the land of the free. So there's this pain, there's this contradiction that lives within us about this, and a sense of we can't keep colluding with this. We can't keep reinforcing, because it becomes at mythological proportions. This freedom that we have, land of the free and the home of the brave. So I understand why the national anthem was chosen particularly as a venue and a way to do some of this protest stuff. Now, from a training perspective, there's something that's problematic here. And what's problematic is that within your form of protest, the end game has to be obvious. That when people are looking at what you're doing, they should be able to understand why you're doing what you're doing. So let's say, for example, some of the more recent protest stuff, the Standing Rock, where you have indigenous tribes that are coming from all over the place. You have, thousands of people showing up. Even the veterans started showing up, with all their military training and whatnot, to be protectors of all of this. But like where it staged and what was going on, it was really clear. Okay, we're standing here to protect this land from these pipelines. You weren't confused, so to speak, about what they were doing. When in January you had the women's marches on Washington, and and that were taking place all over the nation. You might not have been like 100% sure of what their end game was, but you weren't confused, about why the women were taking to the streets, the day after the inauguration. There wasn't a mystery, so to speak, about that. But what I find happening with this is that the notion of a protest against police brutality, the notion of a protest against, Black people dying in the streets at the hands of the police and whatnot, it's not getting conveyed. That intent and to bring attention to those conditions, it's not showing up in the form of the protest. So what happens in this is the shift of hand. And it's not just here, this is what always happens, where the shift becomes whatever that is that you're protesting, should that thing happen, does it have the right to exist? It shifts to who are you, and do you have the right to protest this way? It's a sleight of hand that happens from the issue to you. So say, for example, in my own life, when I sued that restaurant, Papa Chu, my former partner and I, for not serving us in the romantic section of the restaurant, and we finally won at the appellate level. It's certified for publication. It's in the law books. It set the precedent for the inclusion of sexual orientation in the California Civil Rights Bill back in 1984. But I can remember distinctly the conversation that I had with our attorney, Gloria Allred, who's representing a number of the women who were accusing Cosby of rape. I said to her, this thing is flipping. I said, we started off with, does the restaurant have the right? Does the restaurant have the right to exclude people from certain sections of its restaurant? I said, and now it's flipped to my partner and me as lesbians, and like, what's up with us? And like, do we have the right? Do we have the right to sit anywhere that we want to sit? Not does the restaurant have the right to not serve us? So suddenly we're under the spotlight. And it was excruciating. It was just excruciating, and seeing, headlines, literally, like at the Herald Examiner in Los Angeles, judge says behavior okay for opposite sex couples, not okay for same sex couples. I mean, it just, the restaurant kept taking out all of these ads in the newspaper about how they're hanging by their thumbs and they'll go to jail and whatnot before they'll ever serve us. The cameras rolled through. They even closed the booths when they were ordered to serve us rather than serve us. And it was so excruciating. But I will never forget Gloria's response when I said that to her. And I said, this has become like about us, not about the restaurant. Quote, well, I don't know what to do about that. Period. The most brilliant strategies about every single aspect of the case, even how we protest. But I don't know what to do with that. And she didn't. But she knew what was going to happen. I just didn't know what was going to happen. And this is what's happening now, is that the attention has gone away from should black people be better protected to do these black athletes have the right to not stand up for the national anthem? Can you feel it? Mm-hmm. So in organizing, like 101, if you're going to do protest stuff, there needs to be a real link between your method and what it is you're trying to get. So if I'm picketing, for example, I'm going to be out in front of the store with a sign, this company has unfair practices or whatnot. You will be clear as to why I'm picketing. If we call for a boycott, like when we boycotted grapes, there was an end game. It wasn't just a boycott forever, but we're going to boycott until we can get some labor laws for the farm workers. Are you with me? It's got to be clear. So when people ask me, what do I think about this? I respond and say, well, it depends upon the intent. I said, if the intent is a conversation starter, 100%. It's done that. It's not going unnoticed. If the intent is about rallying, like rallying a black community or rallying progressive people to start to think about what are the creative things that we might be able to do to start bringing attention to certain kind of issues, 100% there. If the intent is really about calling us up a little bit to start thinking about and questioning some about what we're doing in terms of what really is patriotic or not, maybe a good 80%. If the end game is really about ending the violence against black people in the streets, I don't think this way of protesting is going to help us get there. It doesn't mean that it's without merit or that it's completely ineffective. No. It's that until we start talking about the issues again, we're going to keep going down the rabbit hole. So that even the protesters, even the people who are in alignment, even the ones who are taking knees, are talking about the flag. They're talking about the national anthem. It's like we've gotten sucked into the media sidebar and justifying whether we can or whether we should or whether it ain't about the national anthem. It's that was just a means to an end. That's one. Two, how do you get the ear of the one you most want to hear you? How do you get their ear? There are some things that backfire. They backfire in that you not only don't get the results that you want, but you wind up with opposite results, where there is a kind of counterproductive. So what I see happening here in terms of sort of broader public opinion is that I'm seeing more division than unification. That instead of it bringing Black and white America together, it's deepening like a divide between Black and white America. And some of what I think that isn't getting noticed, and as this goes viral, which I'm sure parts of this will, and I already know the amount of resistance to some of the things I'm about to say, but I'm here from the spiritual standpoint, and I'm here from the perspective of oneness. When you're communicating, if you really want to change, if you want change, if you want to partner somehow or another with the person that you're communicating with, you have to speak and deliver your message in a way that they can get it. That may feel like compromise sometimes. It may feel like you're giving up something. And as well, you may have to do it. But as a communicator, everything about you, your tone, the words that you use, the way that you dress, the arena and the form in which you use, I mean, like all of that can either make or break the receptivity of the one who's listening. So part of the difficulty that we're having here is that one of the main reasons why white America goes to football games in the first place is to not have to think about politics, is to put all that other stuff away, like put it aside, and I get this little window here where I don't have to think about the bills, I don't have to think about the kids, I don't have to think about war, I don't have to think about the economy, I don't have to think about who's in the what, I don't have to do anything but be entertained. And not just me personally, but this massive collective event. Football arenas and stadiums are like nothing else. A basketball arena, maybe 17,000. 20, 22 might be considered really big. Like I think the San Jose Arena Pavilion is like 25,000, maybe. Where Golden State has been playing the Warriors, I think that's like an 18,000. The Rose Bowl in Southern California, where USC, that's my alma mater, like we would always play into it, seats 117,000. These football arenas are massive in terms of the numbers of people that they gather, and then their following. Are you with me, of everybody who's listening? So what happens is that you have these people who are coming here to this arena, and the national anthem is first. It's for the game even starts. They're hyped up, they got the beer, the pizza, the popcorn, their flags or the pom-poms or whatever, their colors, like whatever this is that's happening. And it's this one place of unification. But we have now gotten to the point in American sports where white people will cheer black athletes, will cheer them, admire them. You know, when my dad was coming up, there was a whole nother league. It was the Negro Baseball League, because black people weren't allowed to play baseball. That's in my lifetime that these doors have opened up where black people were even allowed to play. So this is a huge shift in consciousness of not only being willing, but admiring and putting up on a pedestal so that, you know, little white boys are walking around with a Shaquille O'Neal jersey. You know, kind of like we've done with the breaking through the music barriers. You know, they're wearing stuff with the rappers and whatnot. And this high esteem, and these games have become our place of unification. So that on that field, they're suited up. You can't even tell whose race is what. You know, unlike a basketball game where you physically can look and see, you know, who's what. And it's hard to find a white person these days in professional basketball because it's so dominated by African Americans that there's this sense in the football game of race neutrality, whether it's true or not. Okay? We've made a lot of progress. Now there are black football coaches. That would have been unheard of. I remember what a big deal it was to have a black quarterback. You're going to be the brains. You're going to actually make the call. You're not just going to be the broad and the brick wall. I mean, that's part of the racism stereotype. Where the white man's the head and the black person's the brawn. They're the body, but it's the white people who are controlling things. So you have this mindset, if you can get this picture that I'm painting, of these people who are coming like to have a good time. They paid their money. They paid their money for the game. They paid their money to be entertained. You out there on the field, maybe a multimillionaire. I'm not. I use my hard-earned money and whatnot to pay $50, whatever, to get this ticket. And because we're the fans, all you out there are making like these bigger bucks than I'm ever gonna make, like for most of the fans. And this sense of pride in us as a country and a nation. So when they see that knee drop, or they see people step down, it's personal. They don't see it as you're protesting something or whatnot that's happening to you. You're doing something to me. Check that out what I'm saying. You're doing something to me. You are forcing me to have to be involved, like in your stuff inappropriately. You pooped in my living room. And you've shit on my flag. To kneel, it'd be like, I don't know, like going into the churches and throwing all the Bibles on the floor. Or, you know, it's like, I don't even know like what the equivalent would be. But conservatives are ultra patriotic. And their patriotism is shown in loyalty, not challenge. Conservatives and liberals show their patriotism in challenge and reform. Their patriotism is in how can we do better? You know, how can we shift? How can we grow? How can we transform? How can we change? Conservatives, their patriotism is in tradition. How can we honor, you know, what's been, and how can we keep doing like whatever this is that we're doing? So in their minds, in the minds of the ones who are most offended at that moment, you're shattering their belief in a unified America. And the ones taking the knee are perceived as segregationists. The ones taking the knee are being perceived as racist segregationists. They don't love America. They don't love us as white people. This is equivalent in their minds of like a KKK. Honestly, this is terrorism on their part, as far as they're concerned. For you to desecrate like the national anthem and all of the rest of that, because this is the litmus test. That phrase, one nation under God, in the Pledge of Allegiance, that didn't exist. Like when my mother was growing up, that was not in there. Exactly. One nation under God got inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance in 1954. It became one of these measurements of how do we flush out the communists who were atheists. So all of this stuff, like even on our money, initially, In God We Trust wasn't on the money. That wasn't on the money. There were all of these litmus tests. There were all these different like hoops and hurdles and things that you had to jump through to pledge your allegiance to the United States as a way to prove that you in fact weren't a communist. The stars started getting blacklisted in Hollywood, you know, around with the McCarthyism, exactly, the witch hunts of, you know, what do you believe, like what do you not believe or whatnot. These folks are ready to start the athletic version of McCarthyism. I mean, they're like ready to start witch hunts to like figure out who's not really true. The whole thing with gay people in the military happened around the same time in the 1950s. There weren't bans against gay people in the military before, but there was this association in people's minds between gay people and communists. Pinko commie faggot. You know, they put it all together like that because much of the rise in civil rights, in particular stuff around sexual orientation, was connected to the civil rights movements, which did start with the labor movements. The American civil rights movement was a labor movement at first. It was about jobs. It was about that kind of stuff. And the movement that started out of the United States did start out of Europe. And there was definitely, and if you know anything about LGBT history, many of those early LGBT leaders were in fact communists because they were protesting capitalism. They were protesting, you know, this whole way in which, you know, we're doing things, but that association, you know, got in there. So for the people who are looking at folks taking these knees, to them, it is the very sign of divisiveness, of lack of patriotism, driving a wedge. You know, you're not here for unity, you're not here for oneness, and a sense of being betrayed and duped. Here I am, paying this money to see this game. And you're supposed to represent us. You're the representative of our city. You know, we're the Seattle this, we're the Boston this, yeah, we're the San Francisco this. And you're doing this in the name of Cincinnati, you know, it's like, what are you doing? And you don't have a right to do this. You know what I'm saying? You don't have a right to do this. So it's not getting the ear. It's causing a lot of conversation, but it's not getting the ear. So on my radio show yesterday, I said, it would be kind of the equivalent of you're having marital problems. You're a woman, you're having marital problems, and you know you were inches away from filing for a divorce. And you go to your husband right when he's settling in for the game, big game. He's got his beard, got his pizza, he's got his chips or whatnot, and you take the remote control from him, click it off, and say, honey, we really have to talk.
That's grounds right there.
Okay, now, you know what I'm saying? It may be true. It may be true, but that may not be the moment to try to get that conversation in.
Yes.
And that will hasten you towards the divorce that you don't even want.
I really appreciate your kind of description of the fan's mind, because I'm not an anti-fan, but I'm not a fan either. I could care less whether there's a football game happening, you know? So I couldn't care less. It helps me to understand the mindset then of people who feel like their territory has been violated.
Yes.
Because for me, it's just like, well, here's another public arena. What's the problem? And then I look at the arguments that they come up, and I think, you ignorant buffoons, you don't even understand the history of the flag. You don't understand. You don't even understand the history of our Constitution. And just because I've maybe been a little more interested in researching or even paying attention, doesn't necessarily make them ignorant, unaware.
No.
You know, they just want to watch their football game, and I appreciate your having gone into that.
Well, yes, and what the piece here that I think it gets missing in the loop is that this isn't just a public arena or forum. This is a commodity. This is a commodity. They have purchased this game. This is not some open park on, you know, the 4th of July, and you're doing what? So the debate really starts to become, whose game is this? Whose game is this? Is it your game because, you know, you're the player and this is your job and this is your career? Or is this my game? Because I bought this. This is what's been sold to me. And from a business standpoint, it's kind of like customer relations. That how do you treat your customers and what they want and what do they expect? So these people are reacting not just as U.S. citizens who are offended, but this is a customer relations problem now, so to speak. Where people are saying, I'm not even going to buy this product anymore. I'm going to, you know, I'm not even, that if me as the viewer means that little, where you can't even respect me enough, because they're feeling disrespected, that you can't even respect me enough to let me enjoy this game. You can protest whatever you want to, whenever you want to, you can do whatever, but you don't have the right to do this here. And that I am buying not only this game, but I am buying this experience. It's a collective experience. And I'm telling you now, if you haven't been to a football game, you can't even understand it. Last year, it was so weird. Last year, I wound up with tickets. It was Thanksgiving time to the USC UCLA football game.
Oh.
Now, I went to both schools. With my
Sit in the end
family,
zone.
I'm third generation USC. So that was my undergrad degree. And it was just, it was beyond astounding. This throwback feeling in the Coliseum.
Mm.
And I realized later on, and I actually went online to check it, it was just creepy how my life would do this. It was exactly 40 years since I had been at a college football game. And it had been in that very arena, UCLA against USC.
Hmm.
Both fighting for the title to the Rose Bowl, that exact Thanksgiving weekend. I went back and I looked up 1976, like who was playing, and it was that.
Oh.
And I'm saying that to say that it was like 40 years fell off. I was there. I was in the crowd. You know, and when they started playing the march song, da-dum, da-dum, dum, 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 and the white horse comes around, and like you don't know your history, why do you have a Trojan horse as your what do you call it, mascot for USC Trojan? The Trojan horse was your downfall. The Greeks were inside the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
That's how they got in Troy and destroyed you. You really don't know your history. But nonetheless, the stallion comes around, the white stallion. And I'm saying it to say that there's such a collective, there's a group thing. There's a group mentality. It's part of the reason why rock concerts are so popular and whatnot. When you get tens of thousands, like 100,000 of people, and they're all chanting and they're all singing and they're all, you know, and they're all like at the same time. It's exhilarating. It's like it's electrifying. People are buying that experience. And it's like, how dare you mess with my experience and the things that's the most important to me and the thing that's supposed to be uniting all of us. So then it starts all that racist stuff going on, and people say, you ugly out there, you know, if it weren't for America, you wouldn't in. You need to appreciate who you are. And then, you know, and it instead of us bringing us closer together, it's doing this wedge thing. And I'm not here as a criticism or saying that they're wrong or that they shouldn't be doing it. What I'm hoping it to bring to light is what the problem is. Because I don't think people are understanding the response. I don't think that they're dismissing like the naysayers, and they aren't getting the impact of what they're doing on the other people.
Because it's not a game anymore. It's a principle. It's a principle. It's you're messing around with my principle. How dare you? This is no longer a game. It's no longer a sport. It's the way I live. It's my principle, and you're shitting on it.
Well, it's not just mine, but it's ours. You're shitting on the family. You're splitting the family. You're disowning the family. You're disowning the family. Because you got to remember, these things are happening simultaneously. I see we're run way over. It's happening simultaneously. These games are happening all over the place. See, simultaneously. So there is this sense of this collective, you know, we're all in this. Every sport in America starts off like this. They all do it. And even at the Olympics, that when you get on the winner's box, whoever gets the gold, boom, their flag drops and their national anthem gets played.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're playing for their country.
Mm-hmm.
And this link between country and sport, it's thick. The athletes are our gladiators.
So if the purpose is to unify, and then they're doing this number of taking the knee, and instead of unifying, that's what I meant when I said they're shitting on my principle. They're causing a greater rift, a greater separation. That's what I meant.
Well,
I'm not a sports fan, but I
let's
can
put it
see
this
that.
way. I don't know if it's causing more separation from the standpoint of broader, but where there already is separation, I think it's going deeper. Okay. I don't know if it's, you know, I don't know. I think there are some people who are in the middle who haven't really thought one way or another, who are like quote unquote taking sides now. I think there might be some of that. Okay. But this wasn't about unifying. It was about Black Lives Matter. It was about, look, not everybody's free. And we can't stand around as a nation and continue to watch this. So if you're the protester, or you just got to keep saying it. The Trump administration is brilliant at this. They've got their soundbite. And I don't care what you ask, they just keep saying the same soundbite. You know, well, the president is very dedicated and committed to blah, 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 blah. You know, well, what about the so-and-so got fired? And well, yes, but the president is very dedicated to blah, 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 blah. Okay, they just keep saying it and saying it and saying it and saying. And this is the same thing that we're talking about, that I talk about all the time. Pain pushes until vision pulls. So the discussion now is about the pain. The vision is getting lost. The vision of what it's about is getting lost in all this analysis of the pain. And how many times do you hear me say, articulate the vision? Where do you want to go? Keep it fresh. Let that be what's coming out of the mouth.
Ask for what you want. I hear you say that so much. Ask for what you want, not what you don't want.
Yes. And this is just like live in living color, these principles that I'm talking about and how it works out. You can see it's like this. When you don't do the vision and you're just coming from the pain and people can't hear the vision and you're just doing it from the pain, there's this switch, we just finished this sentence, there's this switch that happens where nobody throws the first punch. Nobody assumes responsibility for being wrong. Everybody thinks they're on the defensive, that the other ones threw the first punch. And so it's that victim, villain, hero triangle that you hear me talk about. When you step out and try to be the hero, then the one who was the villain gets to feel like the victim. So instead of these crowds hearing about victims in the street, they're the victim. We got victimized here. Your action is making us worse off. So whenever you're doing protest stuff, you got to be really careful about that. It's not playing into the hand of that story that's going to happen, where instead of it being about you and your issues, they can flip it to how what you're doing, reverse racism, reverse discrimination. You know, with Blue Lives Matter. Now, oh, these Black Lives people, they're violent and whatnot. If a few cops get killed, oh, Blue Lives Matter, let's turn this around. They're violent. Not they're protesting against police violence. They're the ones who are violent. It's this flip back that happens. And when you're organizing or doing anything, even in your own life, just make sure that you're not inadvertently, you know, playing into something where it gets turned around and you're the bad guy and your point gets lost.
It's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I appreciate your talk today. I mean, you've blown my mind. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I love to hear the way you explain it. It makes sense to me. You help me.
Thank you.
You help me see clearly.
Amen.
I was wondering if you have a sense for how much ahead of time Kaepernick thought of doing this, or was it in the moment? Because you're talking about needing to look at the place, what's the term you were using, like the goal that was something?
Yeah, the end goal.
Yeah, the end.
Okay.
Had he thought that out? Had he talked it over with anybody else? Or
I
was
think
it just that in that moment, he took this meeting?
I think Kaepernick was fine, and he was beautiful in what he did, and it was very brave.
Right.
And those who are on the front, they're willing to sacrifice. I have no doubt that he knew that that was a really big risk. And he might get fired, okay? But I don't necessarily know that he was trying to spark everybody doing what he was doing. I'm not sure that he was trying to spark a whole movement for athletes to continuously take a knee for the anthem.
I just wondered.
I don't necessarily think that was his goal. You know, I don't know. I think he wanted to draw attention to an issue, and then we'll see who else takes the next step. Like for everybody, wherever you are, stick your neck out there,
That's
you know,
what it
and
seemed
take a
like
risk
to me,
to speak
that
up.
it was, that it was more in the moment.
I don't know anybody who's ever done anything in the moment
Well,
like that.
no, but I mean, it wasn't like it had been carefully planned.
No, but what I'm saying is that I don't know of a single instance where there's been some kind of big public protest that was not planned. I mean, people want to make it sound like Rosa Parks just like her feet just hurt. Oh, hell no. Rosa Parks was secretary of the NAACP. She was specifically chosen because of who she was, you know, and her character, that it was beyond anything, you could say nothing about her, that she was just this most upstanding citizen. And she knew exactly what she was doing, when, where, and volunteered to do it. You know, I've been an activist a long time. I don't know anybody that just spontaneously has stuck their neck out that would cost them their career without some serious thinking about it. But anyway, you know, it's been good. I hope this sheds some light.
Wow. Yes.
Good. So those of you, the person on the
I
line-
don't know if Reverend Rafe is still with us. There's a phone number 916, which I think that's Sacramento, so it might be him.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wants, that's, whoever's on the phone, did you want in?
Yeah, I'm still here and I'm good.
To close out.
Amazingly appreciating this.
Yes. So, like I said, I talked about this yesterday morning, and I'm going to be at it again the following Tuesday at 12 Radio. It's called 12, looks like 12, but it's 12radio.com. And you can listen to it live, or you can go into their archives. I haven't seen the chat thing there, but I hear the chat's been just extraordinary. About this. It's not internet radio. So it's at 7 a.m. our time. This coming Tuesday, which is the 10th. It's 10:10, but it's archived, and the one I did yesterday is archived as well. Yeah, if you go to 12radio.org, it should be there. So let's stand. And we give ourselves permission, what? To be all we can be. Thank you, everybody, for the donations, too, by the way. We give ourselves permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. We take this consciousness and multiply it.
Amen.
Woo! Multiply it. Amen. Thank you, Nate, for doing that. Woo!